We had Corby Otis, who was on Florida, Florida's a preseason #1 ranked team in the nation. Corby used to fly in every weekend from Colorado to practice with us and then travel with us, right? And then she ended up going to the Colonel Angels, playing for Marty Tyson. And then she goes to Florida, and now she's a preseason All-American. #1, your daughter, you got to be realistic about your daughter, because you don't want to be traveling if your daughter's average or below average, right? So
you could always get better on those teams too. Yeah. So like, if you want to start out on a travel team from Nebraska, or just you have to do research. Nebraska Premier and Iowa Premier are like those are the first ones that pop in my head, and those two are like top programs.
That are the closest to South Dakota. Hello, and welcome to Catching You, a dad and daughter softball journey. I'm Rusty, a dad who's been in the dugout and on the sidelines.
And I'm Lacey, the daughter whose journey through softball has been filled with incredible wins, tough losses, and so many lessons both on and off the field.
For the past 16 years, we've navigated the highs and lows of softball together, from the local fields to national tournaments and everything in between.
From the challenges of recruitment during COVID to the mental and emotional roller coaster that comes with being a student athlete, we'll be sharing the perspectives of both the parent and athlete and firsthand experience of the impact of sports on mental health and the importance of support from the sidelines.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to Catching You. I'm your co-host, Rusty Ham. With me is my beautiful daughter, Lacey. Lacey, say hi.
Hello.
You are back.
Yeah.
In your bedroom.
So fun.
How does that feel?
I like it a lot better if I had blinds.
So you don't have blinds?
No, so I just have kind of an open window. But at least I'm not by a street, because I wouldn't have constant people like passing by and maybe looking in my window.
Yeah, you are on the 3rd floor. There is an alleyway behind you, which is not the prettiest views in the city.
Well, I can see the football stadium though, which is cool. And then when the minor league San Jose Giants are in season, they're right across the way too, and they have firework night. So sometimes I get a free firework show.
Nice. That's cool.
Really?
Good. I'm glad, because this is your last semester, and I did get emotional. You didn't know this, but I got emotional making that TikTok.
I didn't see you make the TikTok, so.
I know. So you didn't know that I was emotional about it, but we on Friday had our last bullpen. Now I have a feeling I might play catch with you and you might pitch to me, but this was an actual bullpen, right? This is like our last hurrah as far as, again, this podcast is called Catching You. I've been catching you for 14 years as your father on a bucket. They call me a bucket dad, right? We had our last, go ahead.
I haven't used that bucket in a while.
Yeah, I didn't use it. I used a chair, but I used it as a prop.
Yes, for prop's sake, but it's shriveled up and pretty much dead.
It's dead. So it was our last one. And so I made a TikTok, and it's a funny TikTok, but it also is sad.
Which is laughed at it. I showed them today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They thought it was funny.
So it's your last semester. You're back in your room. I don't know if you guys have been listening. You don't know. She had mold in her apartment room. So she was in the living room for 4 months.
Yep.
Approximately. Which is not ideal. But she wasn't in season, which is good. You still got a 3.999999999 on your GPA.
Cool.
Because of one professor.
College doesn't make sense.
I know, yeah. An A- should be 4.0, not 3.9, whatever.
If you're calling a 92.6 less than a... I don't even get me started.
I won't, okay. So you're back in your room though. The mold has been removed. They put new drywall up. They painted. You just need blinds now. But that's good because it's your last semester. You're not going to get sick from the mold like you did last 3 years, the last 2 years. So before we get started, we're going to talk about what the day in the life of Lacey coming back from Christmas break. We did get a fan mail, and I want maybe you can address it and answer it. We talked about it off the air. So this is somebody who just found our show, Lace, and they've been binge listening, which is cool. I like how people would just sit there and listen to multiple episodes over and over again. But they're from a rural area in South Dakota. Now, Lace, do you know who is from South Dakota in our family? Grandma and Grandpa. They grew up in Rapid City, South Dakota, and we used to go there every summer. Loved it. We used to go Mount Rushmore and all that kind of stuff and Crazy Horse. But the fan, they didn't give us their name. So if you guys ever do give us fan mail, please put your name and or a email so we can email you back and say thank you. But we can say thank you on here. But they're from a rural area in South Dakota. And they said South Dakota looks a lot different from Southern California and Texas. Would you agree, Lace?
In Texas?
Yeah. As far as softball related.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, because
Much out there. I don't think.
it's rural. There's a lot of teams in Texas. There's a lot of teams in Southern California. Florida has a bunch of teams. So it's mainly the kind of the warmer states that have a lot of travel ball teams. So what kind of advice would you give somebody that's in a very rural area, especially South Dakota, if they're wanting to maybe get recognized for college softball, right? Because not a lot of colleges are going to be looking at somebody that's from South Dakota.
Yeah, I personally, Flatbusters definitely had a lot of commuters. The older teams had out-of-state girls, definitely from Hawaii, Arizona, Colorado, probably others, but they would fly out to play for that team because you would get recognized for being on that team or just your talent and that bringing your talent to that team. But in South Dakota, personally, I don't know of any competitive travel ball teams that are from South Dakota that get recognized at possibly PGF, Alliance, those type of tournaments. But if you go down in Nebraska or Iowa, they have the Premier Gold teams, which Jordy Ball, Nebraska Premier, Iowa Premier is very competitive. They go really far in a lot of tournaments, and that's right below South Dakota. So that could be an outlet. There's going to be other teams down in Nebraska and Iowa as well, but since they have, that's like the main ones I'm thinking about. Since they're from there, there's going to be like, obviously probably more local friendlies that they could go to. They probably travel a lot for the bigger Alliance, what's it called? Qualifiers or PGF qualifiers. I don't know if they do those anymore. Do they do those? They do. But I know Nebraska Premier won PGF one year. So whatever works for the daughter or like the family, like that would probably be your best option. Like trying out for those teams or finding a team in that state, in Nebraska or Iowa, and playing in that state. Because then you could get recognized from possibly Nebraska Premier or whatever. They're known as one of the top teams, and a lot of good talent comes out of there. They go to big schools.
Yeah, we're not going to lie. It's not cheap. For example, I think it was 12U, right? 12 second year 12s. We had Corby Otis, who was on Florida, Florida's a preseason number 1 ranked team in the nation. Corby used to fly in every weekend from Colorado to practice with us and then travel with us, right? And then she ended up going to the Criminal Angels, playing for Marty Tyson. And then she goes to Florida, and now she's a preseason All-American. Number one, your daughter, you got to be realistic about your daughter. Because you don't want to be traveling if your daughter's average or below average, right? So
you could always get better on those teams too.
Yeah,
so like, if you want to start out on a travel team from Nebraska, or just you have to do research. Nebraska Premier and Iowa Premier are like those are the first ones that pop into my head, and they're one of those two are like top programs.
That are the closest to South Dakota, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So like, or where else? Yeah, those are the two states that I'm looking at that are more competitive than the surrounding states. But
Yeah. And so what you're saying is because the Batbusters, the Athletic Mercados, the Firecrackers, these are all Southern California choppers. And then if you go to Texas, you have the Glory, you have all a bunch of the Texas teams. They have commuters, right? Commuters meaning they're coming from different states. They're coming from the states that are from states that don't have softball, or their softball programs are very limited in what they can provide, right? As far as exposure. So if you are in a rural area and your daughter's, and again, you got to be realistic, but if you feel like your daughter's pretty good and you want to give her that opportunity, and then you got to seek out, probably you might have to travel to another state and work something out with them. If your daughter's good enough that they're going to say, okay, yeah, just come to tournaments. You may not have to you might not have to come to practice. I know the Birmingham Bolts, they're in Alabama, not a big softball mecca, but there are girls that come from different states to play for the Birmingham Bolts or Tennessee Mojo, right? And, they're pretty prominent in Tennessee. They have girls coming from Georgia. They have girls coming from the surrounding states to play for that team. It's not all girls from Tennessee, right? So
what do we think? Tennessee Mojo?
what's that?
Didn't we think about going there?
We did. Yeah. The coach actually invited you to play on the team, and he was going to pay for your travel. So we did think about it. Was an option.
Yeah.
And it came at a point when you weren't getting a whole lot of time on this team. So we're like, hey, that might be a possibility. But then things worked out for us.
That would have been a lot, I feel like, on my little high school self.
Yeah, it's not a short flight. It's five and a half hour flight to practice. Tournament. It was a thought. It did cross our minds. We stayed put and things worked out for you. Let's go back to your last semester coming back from Christmas break. We did a Christmas break, what you should be doing during Christmas break, right? You're not taking 3 weeks off or 4 weeks off. You're still working. You and I, even when we went up north to Monterey, you did some arm circles and you kept your arm loose. Now that you're back, the day in the life of a college softball player coming back from Christmas break, what does that look like?
So our first day back, we had our conditioning test, which ours is the beep test for like the pacer test you do in middle school. So just like that, and you have to get to a certain level, which stresses a lot of people out. And
if you don't get to that level, you got to do it again, correct?
Yes, until you pass. Then today, first day back, we just go straight into live scrimmage for 2.5 hours. I think we played either 12 or 13 innings today. So I got 3 innings. And it's a little like you want to be super good coming back from winter break, but sometimes it's just not. You haven't faced live batters in about a month and a half. So just getting back used to pitching to live batters, counts, all that stuff can be difficult. But the rest of the week, so to Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Time out. Let's backtrack. So you did a pacer test and you threw a live scrimmage day 1 from coming back from a 3-week break, correct?
Yes.
So if you didn't do anything for 3 weeks, how do you think today would have gone for some people? Not so. You had to do some sort of conditioning over the 3 weeks, maybe even practice the beeper test to be prepared, right? So you don't have, again, we talked about it, you don't have time off when you're in college. Like you might have gotten away with it in travel ball because your first couple practices coming back from travel balls is probably going to be maybe some you're going to get a fungo hit to you a couple times, maybe run the bases a few times. But now you're going live against other collegiate athletes. Pitching wise, you got to be prepared, right? If you didn't throw the ball once in the 3 weeks, I know you didn't feel good about today, or you weren't real excited about today, but I have a feeling if you didn't pitch for 3 weeks, it would have been a lot
Yeah. And you have to take breaks. Like you have to give your body a break. You have to give your mind a break at some point. Like I'll be honest, I'm not pitching or working out 7 days a week or 6 days a week. Like I'm making time to do things that I like with my friends, or if that means getting a workout in the morning and then doing whatever throughout the day. That's more realistic than 6 to 7 days a week.
I'm not saying that if you're in college, the 3 weeks off, you're going hard every single day. I'm not saying that, but you got to do something,
Yeah.
or you're gonna come back to college and like Lacey, you have to, go live, and
It's
they're gonna know, right? Your coaches are gonna know if you did stuff or you didn't.
they'll it's also hard because it really helps when you're athletic. Like my Australian teammate came to our conditioning test today straight from the plane. She was on a plane for 12 hours, 14 hours maybe.
From Australia?
Yes, from Australia. Had one of her friends picked her up, drove her to the weight room straight from the airport. And so she was on 3 hours of sleep, and basically like by the time that she arrived in the United States, it was like midnight or 2 a.m. Australian time.
Yeah, it was the next day.
It's the next day, basically.
Yeah, I think, and you might be generous on the time, because I used to work at a hotel and we used to get a bunch of Australians, and it's more like 16 to 17 hour flight.
Right. So imagine coming straight from the airport after that flight, having to run our conditioning test and go live. She said she felt like it wasn't real, like she wasn't in real life.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Like
Okay, so continue on to the rest of the week. So what does the rest of the week look like?
So the rest of the week, I'll probably get to the field at 8:30. We'll start practice at 9, go 9 to 11:30, have lunch 11:30 to noon, and then go 12:15 to 2:45. So 2 practices. Usually they split it up between defense and offense. It just depends what they're feeling and whether we hit first or go on defense first. But yeah, we'll do a split 6-hour practice, which is like travel ball practice, where I don't know if we got lunch break though.
Yeah, you were able to sit down and have your
Maybe have a little snack.
maybe a little string cheese.
Well, basically, they stocked the whole cafeteria for us, or our kitchen, from like Costco, and we'll have our first practice and then eat lunch together and then second practice. But Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we'll have weights before practice, which will be at 8 a.m. So I have 8 a.m. weights, an hour of weights, and then the 9 to whatever lunch. So that will be for the next 2 weeks.
Right, because you don't have classes yet, right? So
They could do whatever they want with you. We could go 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. if they really wanted to.
because in the fall you had 20 hours for the week.
Yes, that starts. 20 hours start when school starts.
Yeah, so when school starts, there's a rule, an NCAA rule, that you can only practice X amount of hours per week, but you are technically not in school because you haven't started classes yet. So they're like, well, you're ours for the next 2 weeks.
Basically, softball.
Yeah. And there's a reason why, because there is a little bit of, you got to get, because your season starts fairly soon. We're almost mid-January. Your first game is what, February what?
That 8 seconds.
So you're 4 weeks away. Your first game. So it's every day for 2 weeks, only softball, but you got to be ready. You got to get ready for that first game.
Somehow. And because in the fall, when you do 8 hours, I really feel like I'm not with my team a whole lot, especially with class schedules, because they are so different with everyone's major. Kinesiology majors, I got lucky with my minor. I only have to take certain classes, but majors, most of their classes are in the morning. And we need to block out like 8 a.m. to 12:30 for practice and weights. But sometimes the only class they allow you to take, for if it's a required course for you to take, the only option's at 9 a.m. So you have to leave practice early or come back and do extra work. Even during 20-hour weeks, like people are coming and going from class. Like it's really hard. It's very rare that the whole team is practicing together.
Mhm.
So when we come back from winter break, these 2 weeks are pretty much the only time the whole team is actually practicing together. And I don't know if it's like that at other universities where people like have required classes that they have to take and it's during our practice time. But like it's literally impossible for our team usually to be all together all at once at the same time.
I would imagine that San Jose State's not the only college that has that.
It's insane the classes that they like it's the only time like that. Are you telling me that's the only time I can take that class and with that one professor? You're telling me there's no other professors?
Fun.
Your biology 101. Crazy.
So you got 2 weeks, season starts, you're on the Mariner, which is awesome. I have a good feeling because we talked about it before. Nobody left, nobody came in, and I think you have a pretty solid freshman group that came in, right? There's a couple girls that are going to be able to contribute. So that's a good sign. Pitching staff, we talked about it.
We have the same pitching staff from last year. It really just depends on
People stepping.
it. Yeah. We have obviously a different coach this year. I feel there's like a different mindset going into it a little bit. Like a lot less anxious thoughts about because I've talked about it before. Our opening weekend last year was ridiculous. We won one of the games, right? The one on my birthday. Went 1-4, I think, and got mercied by 2 teams we've never lost to in the history of San Jose State. So, yeah, it was like a punch in the gut, and I don't want that to happen again. That was the worst feeling.
Yeah, I said it. I've said it many times. You guys, a lot of times, you guys play better when you feel better, when you feel good. When you're, like you said, when you're anxious or you're gonna have drama, and and it's not just females. There's drama on basketball team. I coached again. I coached 30 years of boys basketball. Believe me, there's drama. It's not just females. So when I say drama, I just mean there's conflict, and how young adults handle conflict is a lot different from even adults. Regular adults don't handle conflict very well.
We've I've experienced drama within softball. Way more, I'd say, middle school, high school. When I got to college, it's just a little bit different. I'd explain it more as not everyone gets along, and that's fine. But like when you go and play, it doesn't necessarily go away. So it's a team sport, but it's also an individual sport at the same time because of like performance that you have. But say there's drama on, say, a basketball team and that gets brought onto the court, I'm not passing to that person. And that person has the control. They can control that. But I can't control if a ground ball gets hit to my third baseman.
The third baseman's gonna. I'm not fielding this because I had a fight with Lacey yesterday. That's not gonna happen.
Not happening. But say that back to the basketball thing. I could not pass to that one person that I had drama with the whole game.
That's true.
That would impact win or loss. Could potentially. Maybe it doesn't, but
yeah, good point. The drama I was talking about, and we don't want to bring coaches into it, but it just the feel, right? The anxiousness wasn't necessarily with other players. It was
more environmental.
It was more environmental. It was top down. You guys just weren't feeling good about who was there and who was supposed to be your advocate, who was supposed to be on your side, and sometimes you felt like the person that you think is supposed to be on your side was not on your side. So when you have that in the back of your head, and then you have to go out there and try to perform, and then you don't trust that person who's supposed to be. So when there's no trust, then your performance level tends to drop. Would you agree?
I would agree. For like people that are going through that right now, pushing it to the side and trying not to deal with it or trying not to think about it just makes it even worse. And I always talk about environment, or I love bringing psychology into everything. Nature versus nurture, always. Both are true, but there's a reason why I want my own space, or I talk about my room a lot and not living in the dorms necessarily. The dorms are a great experience for freshmen. Go live in the dorms. But I'd say environment, whether it's your home life or if you move off to college, what do you want out of your environment? If you're living in the dorms and it's super small, personally, I like cooking my own meals. That's what grew up with mom, and I didn't have a kitchen. We had the community kitchen that would set off the fire alarm every day, no matter what you were cooking. There was that. Then you have the community bathrooms where the showers are literally 2x2 and you can't move. So there's that. Then you have the dining hall, whether what school you go to, depending on the food that they have, could be good or bad with like funding or whatever. Thank goodness I had some good experiences there. But
some would call that a rite of passage. It's the rite of passage of moving on from high school to college and experiencing.
Are you talking about like freshman year? Like those?
Freshman year in college it's like a rite of passage. That's why they almost make you stay in the dorms, because it's, forcing you to be on your own rather than, because
clean up after yourself, maybe do your laundry.
Yeah, a rite of passage, right? Yeah. So, so now you're on your own. You're in the apartment. You got your own room. That's why mentally during the fall you were battling, right? You were displaced out of your bedroom into the living room, so that sucked.
Yeah, there could be worse situations.
Obviously, yeah, other people in life have worse situations than you.
Yes.
Which was definitely brought up to you, but you have a certain way of living, and it was disrupted.
And yeah. And people react to things in different ways. And for me, like when my routine gets messed up, I freak out a little bit, which I think I've mentioned before. But then it's weird. Me and my roommate were talking about this. Since I had to live in the living room, I had to move certain things around, like the trash can I had to move over so I could put my dresser where the trash can was. So for 4 months, we got used to like cleaning up the kitchen and putting the trash where the trash can was where I moved it. Now I moved it back to its original place. Every day I've turned to the place that it was when I was living in the living room. And now I'm like, I moved it back. So now I have to put it in the trash where it was. So it's really weird how you adapt to a certain routine again. I thought that was really weird. Or I came back from practice and I have my backpack. Couldn't put it in my room. So I would put it in the same spot by the table where we put our keys. I came in and I took it off and I was setting it down.
Instead of going into your room.
Instead of just going into my room. I thought that was really weird.
You have a story to tell, right? And you have a story to tell your kids hey, back when I was in college, this happened to me. I don't want to hear it because this happened to me.
Yeah, I'm just grateful to even have a room and a kitchen.
So back to my point, and then this will be it, that you are back in your comfort zone and your routine. You have what I feel is the right coach for you, the right pitching coach for you. She's got a plan for you. You seem confident, which I think is important, right? Going into your last season, you want to perform and do well. So this is important. I'm glad that you're able to get back in your room, have that routine that you so proudly would like to have. I have a good feeling. I am very optimistic about how well you're going to do and how well the team's going to do. So I'm looking forward to watching you play and catching you in those situations.
Yes, I got
you. Got it. Okay. All right, Lace. I love you. Catch everybody else on the other side. Yeah. Take care.